Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, no emergency drills planned. So in the event of a fire or emergency, the alarm bell will ring continuously. You should vacate the building in a calm way through the nearest available exit and make your way to the fire assembly point in the car. Please can I ask that the live stream is started? Thanks very much. So we're being streamed live now. So welcome everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to this impressive room in Hereford Town Hall and to the meeting of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website. The Council is streaming this meeting live on our Council YouTube channel and is making an official recording. The recording forms part of the public record of the meeting and will be available via the Council's website shortly after the meeting has concluded. This is our first face-to-face meeting for a very long time, and I think it feels stranger than actually going on to Zoom. But anyway, it's very nice to see people in the flesh. As you can hear, this room has really horrible, very echoey acoustics. So please, can I ask everybody to speak slowly and clearly, maybe introduce yourself if you're asking a question. Other attendees are permitted to film, photograph and record a public meeting, providing that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If you don't wish to be filmed or photographed, please identify yourself. So as I was saying, as you see, we haven't got microphones, and what we say is being picked up in the middle, is that right? Yeah, so that's why we have to speak very clearly. And Kate is going to be joining us remotely, so we need to be sure that we speak clearly for her and for Tess and Kim, so it's very nice to see them up there. And welcome to others in attendance, Councillor Norman, Cabinet Member for Children and Families, Claire Ward, our Monitoring Officer, Kath Knowles, our Interim Director of Children and Families, and Matt, our Democratic Services Officer, and Jane from Great, well, it's really great to have you here. Thanks for coming. So we've received apologies from Councillor Gandhi and Andy James. Is that it?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, Councillor Graham Andrews, Councillor Carol Gandhi, and Mr. Andrews.
And any substitutes?
Just to confirm, Councillor Harvey is acting as a substitute. Councillor Graham Andrews.
Great. Welcome. It's good to see you. Do any members wish to declare any Schedule 1, 2 or other interests in advance of today's agenda? Okay, thanks. And the minutes of our meeting on the 30th of April, are the minutes approved? Could you raise your hand if you approve the minutes from that meeting, please?
Abstain.
Okay, so for, against, abstain. Okay, Karen, thank you. Item 5, questions from members of the public. We haven't received any.
None received.
And item 6, questions from members of the council. Okay, thank you. So we're already at item 7, which is the key element of this meeting and why we call the meeting. To receive an update report on the coordination of the children's legal team at Herefordshire and measures being implemented rapidly in response to the recent court judgment. This report is available in the supplement published on the 14th of May. Councillor Gandhi, as chair, agreed to this report being circulated late in line with paragraph 4.2.30 of the council's constitution. Unfortunately, the report wasn't available at the time of dispatch, but Councillor Gandhi determined that it should be considered as a matter of urgency because of the urgent situation that we're in at the moment, and we asked for this so that we can hear as soon as possible from our legal department what our response is to the recent court judgment. So thank you very much, Kate, for this report and for drawing it up so quickly. Can I hand over to you to say a few words? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Toynbee, and thank you, members. Yes, this is a report to set out from the history of legal services since 2018, when the service was brought back into the council, fully brought back into the council, and also to set out the response to the paragraph in the full council report that said that incorrect legal advice was given in June 2019 in relation to the withdrawal of life support, and how this new team has responded to that, and how it now works with the children's service, and particular issues that were drawn out of the judgment in relation to disclosure, also in terms of, we've summarised those in the report, and how we are going to respond to those, and how we're drawing up a disclosure protocol so that this couldn't or we can at least mitigate this happening again. And I know that Claire Ward, as monitoring officer, has been raising this with the management team, and they are currently looking at an information management protocol to deal with this. So I'm happy to take any questions from members regarding the contents of this report. I have brought along with me Kim Gaffey and also Tess Burgess, who are currently the acting heads of law in the Children's Legal Service, and they can answer questions in relation to technical queries and also in terms of management of the team. Just to explain, they're currently in acting roles because we're in the process, right in the middle of a process of recruiting to permanent positions in the team. And Kim and Tess have both been acting up into this role since March 2020. So I don't know whether Claire would just like a word first, and then members were happy to answer questions.
Yeah, so we're really grateful for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today about the legal department. It's been a journey of about 6 years since I've been here in ensuring that the practice is fit for purpose, and unfortunately the reason we're looking at legal services today that our practice wasn't fit for purpose, and incorrect legal advice was given. We've talked about it for council, but I hope the papers before you today set out the journey that we've been on, the steps we're going to take to ensure that we are in a better place, and as I say, the team's here to support in answering your questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I found this extremely interesting and useful background to where we are now and context. Also quite shocking that there's lots of highlighted panel over it. Obviously, phrases like incorrect advice is given sort of leaps out and smacks us in the face. As a scrutiny committee, obviously, as you said, Kate, information management is something that is really important to us, and information sharing, all those issues. So that's very relevant to us. Thank you. Before I go on, any cabinet committee colleagues, who's got any questions? Yes, Councillor Hay.
Thank you. Really, it's just in relation to what you've just said, Kate, with the fact that obviously the two members of staff we've got here from legal are acting up, and I just wanted some sort of assurance that obviously when new posts are in place, how are we going to ensure a successful handover information and make sure there's that consistency with the service if we have new people taking on those posts, obviously with all the background and the ongoing cases that we're dealing with.
Councillor Hay, thank you for that question. I am pleased to say that both Tess and Kim are have applied for the permanent post. So permanent post, and if they are secure that permanent post, then obviously we've got consistency in terms of their background and their knowledge. And if actually the outcome is different, then we would absolutely have a full handover from the current holders to a new post holder. We have particularly looked and we're particularly interested in people who have dealt with an improvement journey. So there will be a handover in a period of time for that to take place. However, as I've said, this is a recruitment process whereby Tess and Kim are involved in that as well, and we would hope that they would be successful in securing the permanent posts.
Thanks very much. That's reassuring.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of questions. One was
Councillor Howard.
Councillor Howard, sorry, yes, from Ledbury. Can you hear me okay? Right, thank you. Yes, one was very closely related to what Kath just said about resources. Can you hear me okay? I see you're struggling. Okay. Yeah, it's clearly critical at any time from the report. Never had adequate resources, it seems, but now it's especially important that you do. So I'd just like to ask, even though you're recruiting, how confident are you that you do actually have all the resources needed to tackle all the tasks that you set out in the report?
So thank you. That's a really helpful question. We actually have in 2019 full council approved a budget for legal services. So we were able with that budget then to support the restructuring and reshaping proposals to make sure that there was a structure within the children's legal team. To be able to provide advice on a proactive basis. The market, I have to say, is challenging in terms of being able to recruit qualified children's care lawyers, so it isn't always possible to recruit on a permanent basis. So we do have a mixture of locum staff, locum and their qualified lawyers, along with permanent qualified staff as well. And we are currently working with Andrew Lovegrove with regard to, and Kath Knowles, in terms of the necessary resourcing for the team. We've created a sub-team within the children's team called a resilience and improvement team, which we're currently resourcing up with support from qualified lawyers and also support from Tess and Kim themselves. And we've got an improvement plan, which is included as an appendix to this report, which we've also been working jointly with Kath and her colleagues in terms of a joint improvement plan as well. So in terms of resourcing, we have a structure, we have an approved budget, but we are also looking at an additional resources budget with Andrew Lovegrove, the Chief Finance Officer, to ensure that the resilience and improvement team and the improvement journey to support the children's service is sufficient and adequate.
Thank you. Claire.
Can I just add, though, although we've got the money, what's really difficult is I just want to emphasise what Kate said, is recruiting in this market is really, really hard. And obviously the result of the judgment makes it even harder. There'll be some people who are attracted to coming here because of the journey we're going to go. We're going to do some brilliant work here. I have no doubt about that at all. But some people are interested, some people think, I don't want to come, I don't want to come here. So although we've got the money, actually getting the resource is our problem, and that has been a long-term problem, made more difficult now by the judgment.
If I could just provide a little further reassurance, though, we are very fortunate where we've had the opportunity to recruit locums into the team. They do stay for our track record is that they do stay for longer periods. So they're not fleeting members of staff. They don't stay for a month or a few months. Where we have been fortunate enough to recruit good quality locums into the team, they tend to stay in excess of a year, 2 years. So we have a few members of locums in the team who have been with us for a couple of years. So I think it's just important to say that they aren't fleeting, and they are essentially established members of the team, notwithstanding the fact that they are locum staff. Thank you.
Thank you all. And that's an interesting point about some people actually being attracted to being part of this improvement journey. Kath, is there anything you wanted to add about any of that?
No, I would echo, because obviously the same challenges as for social work, but there's a national shortage of social work, and so, you know, and like Claire said, some people are attracted. I'm here. I was attracted. I want to be part of it. I want to be, and I'm with Claire. We will do this.
Yeah.
But yes, there is many challenges. But the close working relationship I've developed with Claire, Kate, Tess, and Kim makes it so much easier, you know, to make the improvements we're doing. And I welcome that. I welcome the support and the help you've given me and continue to give me.
It's great. I mean, sorry, 3 up there and 2 down here, but it already feels like a team that's
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Councillor House, did you have another question?
Yes, please. It's a follow-on to that, essentially, because understanding the difficulties and the uncertainties. In the report, you set yourself quite a lot of tasks, such as going through protocol development and approval, something in the appendices. But it would be good to have some timescales given the uncertainties. I know that makes it more difficult, but can you give us some idea of the timescales to reduce several of these protocols? For example, you said they're in the process of being done at the moment. That may be difficult on the spot, but it would be a good idea to know whether we're sort of 3 months or 6 months away, for example, in getting everything in place to make sure we're following better practice.
So I can help with that, and also I'll ask Tess and Kim as well to add to this. We're obviously working with Kath, as she has said, in terms of a joint improvement, and then we obviously have the improvement notice that was issued by the DFE to say we've got an improvement notice to 2020, April 2020. So these monitoring of what needs to be done and the improvements needs to be done is obviously a requirement at pace. So that's why we've worked very quickly with Kath and her team to identify what the joint improvement plan might look like. So what I'll do is I'll hand over now to Tess and Kim so that they can answer your question, Councillor Howes, in a bit more detail in terms of what they've achieved so far in terms of identifying the improvement and what needs to be done further, and then Kath might also like to support us in terms of what work we've been doing with her as well.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Councillor Howes. Essentially, set out within Appendix 5, you'll see that there are several stages, the first of which clearly labelled the first stage, sets out the immediate steps that Kim and I have sought to progress. One of the key areas that we felt needed immediate attention was in respect of the establishment of an SGO disco panel. So I should explain really what those acronyms mean. So SGO, as I'm sure you're aware, is Special Guardianship Order, and DISCO is Discharge of Care Order. So effectively, it's very important that when, just as when we take a decision to issue care proceedings, and threshold is considered as to whether or not we have threshold to make an application to court to enter into care proceedings, there also needs to be that equivalent and parallel oversight in relation to the local authority stepping away from a looked after child in terms of them no longer having local authority involvement if the care order is discharged. And historically, there hasn't been a panel in place, so decisions have been made sort of out of the context of any formal forum or panel setup. So that's one of been the huge steps that has been taken, and for that panel, it's really important that we have both legal attendance on that panel, so there's legal oversight, as well as assistant director oversight in terms of decision making. We've also, as Kath has highlighted, one of the major changes that have been established since Kath Knowles has been in post is that we've managed to forge a really strong working relationship very quickly with Kath. And that has meant that Kim and I have been escalating matters of concern. So if there's something that a member of our team highlights or brings to our attention, or there's something that we are concerned about because we've sat in on a meeting, because Kim and I think it's very important for the sake of consistency that we sit on legal planning meetings, so we have an overarching view of the work that is coming into the legal team. So in those instances where we've been concerned by what we've heard, we have immediately escalated that to Kath, and as well as Kath to Hilary Brooks, Assistant Director, and Charmaine Lawrence, who's also a new interim Assistant Director. That escalation is something that historically wasn't as robust in terms of having that line of sight from legal directly to the DCS. So that has made a huge difference, and we've really noticed that line of communication has meant that things have been change has been effective quickly, and we've been able to establish roundtable meetings to quickly sort issues before they have needed to be taken any further. In terms of the review work, we have the service itself has been looking at special guardianship order assessments for both those applications as an immediate priority that are currently in court, as well as those applications that are due to be in court imminently. The service has conducted quality assurance work on those matters, and we as a legal team have also inputted, and we've identified those areas which need further attention and some focused work. So we have therefore been alerted of any issues that essentially need addressing urgently. So Kim and I have been working on that. As well as that, we have also taken the opportunity to review the 3 2018 High Court judgments, as well as the recent ReYY case, and looked at all of the findings of fact from those matters, and essentially conducted an analysis of the key themes that have arisen out of those judgments, and those key themes will form the basis of the work that we are required to undertake as a team. Kim, I appreciate that I have talked a lot. I don't know if you want to add anything that I have discussed potentially in terms of going forward. I know that Councillor has raised a question in respect of timescales and how long it will take going forward.
Yeah, so I think just to we can safely say that we have undertaken stage 1 of our journey, and we're commencing stage 2. Like Tess mentioned, we have now got a really close relationship with the service department in Kath Knowles, the interim DCS. So anything that is getting looked at a much earlier stage to a resolution for that. Going forward, it's not going to be a quick fix. It is going to take time. We want to take time to make sure this is sustained, it's implemented, and we know that our is working. So we have projected roughly a 2-year plan. But as I say, along the way, we want to monitor and make sure that those outcomes are reached, and that we can revisit them, and we can make sure that it is working and in place.
Okay, thank you.
Would it help if I just added around the timescales for you? Just
Well, yes,
it's
difficult to set timescales up. That's the whole point.
Yeah. The timescales will be set and directed by the improvement board through the DFE advisor. So what you've heard so far is some immediate that we have to do following the judgment. So there were some things we really needed to do, and we couldn't wait for the improvement board or the DFE advisor. So it was really clear that there was some pre-action that we needed to do, and that's what Tess and Kim have just described. But in terms of moving forward in your timescales, the notice is very clear. The DFE advisor is here for 12 months. That's the minimum. That may get extended. They are looking for progress within that 12 months. The advisor will set very clear milestones within that 12 months of 3, 6, 9, and priority actions that will be agreed at the board of what needs to be done, and then show the improvement. So this will build on the work that's already happened in legal and also in children's services, in order to sort of set that benchmarking and that milestone. So what scrutiny will get will be the reports from that, you'll get the site plan, you will see the timescales, you'll see the milestones, and that's when you'll be able to bring the challenge to say, has that been achieved, is that where it is, why is that slipped? And sat behind that will be the improvement, a performance report that will all lend to it. So it will all be governed under this improvement plan that's sat with the DFE advisor as the chair, and the chair reports every 6 weeks to the minister an update on that. And that report we've talked about, we've said around that being also shared with scrutiny. So you will see very open, transparent milestones, and on the 14th of June, when our first board is, that will be set, and we'll be in a position to be able to share clear, tangible timescales. That helps.
It certainly helps reassurance that you've got all those ideas in mind, but I think it'd be good for us to see what that timescale might be. So I'll make a recommendation later about what you might like to submit to this. Thank you for that. Thank you, ladies, for your answers too. It's obviously a difficult subject. I realise that.
Just to add to that, I just thinking about what Kim's saying about having a 2-year plan, and obviously we're talking about a year initially. What would happen at that year point where perhaps progress hadn't been made in the way that people had expected? Will that be able to be then continued into the 2nd year with be further intervention at that point?
Yeah, so if I just sort of expand, this is, as I think it was Kim that said, this is not a quick fix. you're talking about a good 3 to 5 year journey of improvement here. But what they want to see, the Minister wants to see, is some real pace in the first 12 months. But it's not just that will be it, then it'll all stop, it will continue, and the progress will continue. And the rigour of the board will ensure that that pace is happening. And if there's any concerns or anything that we need to do, it'll get picked up straight away. The board meets on a monthly basis. But the plan really for both of us is really a 2 to 3, you know, a 3 to 5 year plan to get to that outstanding and to get to the excellent. Now that doesn't mean to say we're going to wait 5 years before we get the outstanding and excellent. Certainly we can bring that forward, but what it needs to be built on a solid foundation. So we need to make sure we've got all the steps in, so the resources that we've talked about, the plan going in and getting that building up, and then it starts to build and build and build, and the plan. And it could be that the board, you know, after 12 months, the minister's happy and satisfied and they say, you don't need a board. The scrutiny and the safeguarding partnership boards can take up that mantle now because it's in a better place. Or they may say they'll extend it and give us additional 12 months support. There's lots of things. If we don't make progress, if we don't do it in a timely manner that satisfies the minister, there is a risk that we could move from a non-formal statutory notice to a formal statutory notice, which brings in a much higher scrutiny answer.
I think that's what it's getting.
But I don't believe that we will get there. I think the DFE advisor we've got is a very experienced advisor. She will be meeting councillors as well. I think she's talked about coming to scrutiny, to talk to scrutiny herself. If there's an invite extended to her, she's happy to do that. So I don't believe we'll end up on that journey. I'm with Claire. I think we're in a good place and we can go forward. But yes, the reality is you could end up in statutory. You end up in statutory, you end up with the commissioner, and the commissioner could then decide whether they feel that we can carry on managing services. But I don't believe we're there. And I don't believe we'll get there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. Yes, for scrutiny, everything to do with milestones and timescale.
Yes.
Obviously, what everybody's thinking about, and it would be good to extend an invitation to the DFE advisor. It would be really great. And we'll have to think about how we incorporate that into our work program.
Yeah, if I could just say, I wasn't going to bring it up now, but as I'm talking about it, I will. I'm planning to do a paper for your next meeting, 1st of June, about the improvement notice, about the improvement board, how we anticipate it working, to get your views at this very early stage. So that will be published tomorrow.
Thank you. So that'll be on our agenda for our next meeting, which
That's
is
what
quite soon.
proposing, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
I wonder if you could explain the legal, in Appendix 4, it said how important the Red Book was. Could you explain a bit more about that Red Book and why didn't they have access to that Red Book? Or is it cost? Was it management against it? Given how critical it is to the legal service.
I can answer to begin with, and then tell you what it actually is.
Okay.
So the Red Book is, I can't remember the person's name, it's with an H, isn't it, the Red Book? Something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a person's name, it's the Red Book. It's a loose leaf. Imagine a really old-fashioned legal textbook, but it's loose leaf, and every week you have someone updating it, okay? We had a budget for the hard book. We never had a budget for the IT to have it electronically. So although we made bids all the time to get more money, we didn't have the money to do it. And the price of one of those compared to having it electronically is about 4 times the price. We do now have it in place, but that was the reason why.
What is that cost?
If I remember rightly, it's about 3,000 for the book, and so 15,000 for it on electronic.
The advantage of having it electronically as well means that advocates at court are able to access the resource, whereas historically, where there was only one hard copy within the office, obviously that wasn't much use to anybody if they were in Worcester in the family court, because you couldn't refer to it. Whereas clearly, I know that currently the majority of court hearings are taking place remotely, but contested evidential hearings are still taking place at court at Worcester, which means that advocates now have ready access to the Red Book. And I think, just to take a step back, just to explain what the Red Book is, essentially it's a specialist, almost like an encyclopedia for children's law. So any niche points that a children's lawyer would want to check and confirm, or any point of law, or essentially the litigator is able to reference that resource and confirm what they need to know, whether it be for the hearing or whether they need to proffer written or verbal advice. Thank you.
Is that okay, Councillor Jones?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Bradley?
Yeah, so Sam Bradley. My question is just about the tasks that you're planning. It's a good list of tasks, and it's pleasing to hear the progress that you've made to start with. But how confident are we that they're the right tasks? There's often a temptation in a crisis to come up with lots of things to do, and there's lots of reviewing, there's lots of tracking, there's lots of providing findings of reviewing. How confident are we that these will actually lead to the change that we want to see? And then in terms of internal audit, how confident are we that we'll be able to track whether we're doing them and that they are still the right tasks that lead us to improvement?
In terms of our confidence in the tasks that are being created, the scoping exercise for assessing what is necessary and looking to address historic deficiencies can only be based on the information that we have before us in terms of where we know we have failed previously. So clearly the High Court judgments lead us to be able to define the particular areas that need to be worked on, but also the quality assurance work that's currently being undertaken. You may have heard the term used, no stone will be left unturned. Now, that's something, the reason why everything is being looked into in terms of granular detail is that so that we are able to identify deficiencies. Now, without identifying those deficiencies, we would have no foundation or basis for knowing what the tasks are. So the tasks are being informed by, as I say, historic deficiencies and things that are being now unearthed as a result of the quality assurance work. In terms of internal audit and going forward in ensuring that these tasks that are being undertaken and new protocols and different ways of working that are being implemented and embedded, I absolutely think it's vitally important that we ensure that these new as I say, ways of working are being carried forward. So in order to do that, what we will be doing is implementing training to social work staff to ensure that knowledge is disseminated in terms of how we are seeking to implement change. We'll also be looking at feedback from social workers in terms of those areas that they feel they need more support with and where there are knowledge gaps. And the legal department are working alongside the Social Work Academy, effectively working together in order to ensure that those particular areas are addressed. But also it is the role of the legal department in terms of going back to your question about ensuring that tasks have been undertaken, by identifying whether issues keep on consistently arising in terms of cases that we receive. And that is why, just to link back to the escalation process, why that is so important, because we're able to monitor and identify key themes. If these issues keep landing on our desks and we're not seeing any form of change, then clearly things aren't being addressed properly, and we'll have to return to the issue and see whether there needs to be any form of alternative in seeking a solution. Does it assist?
I think if I just expand, exactly. I think what's really important is that list is in the here and now. You know, we talked about that kind of immediate reaction, so I think that list will change what we do and what we, you know, what some people might say, actually, we don't need to do that yet. We'll be prioritising it as well. I've already asked for internal audit to come in and make sure that there is progress, but also this is the list that we've devised ourselves. I want a bit of external check on that as well, and that will also work in relation to the improvement board, because the improvement board, when they won't be looking at legal practice, there'll obviously be issues coming out about social work practice because they have to go into the legal plan. So it's all lots of moving parts, which I know aren't certain at the moment, but we have a plan that are going to work. It's just got to work now. We can't carry on as we are. So.
The task that you're talking about, the list with the here and now, that will be reviewed as part of that improvement process, which is what Claire's saying. And it is informed by your judgments, because we've had 3 judgments. It's also informed by Ofsted, because they're telling you around quality of practice as well, which informs how we're working with our legal colleagues. And the biggest outcome will be is the difference we're making in children's lives. How, when children do come through the service, and moving through it in the right way, there's proper permanency planning for these children and outcomes for these children, and you'll see that reducing in a way that's making a difference, and their voices saying this has made a difference in our lives. So it's that whole, it's not just a tick list. It's very easy when you go into an improvement plan to create a tick list. And that's the worst thing we can do. So hence why the structure of that plan will be very clear, tight timescales and agreed priority actions. And as Claire said, how then that interfaces with the legal. So the legal and the social care plan will come together so it blends and complements one another to drive the improvement. And the test then will be external audits and internal audits to help.
I think that's really helpful, thank you. And I mean, an interesting example is the protocol that's included in the pack. That it's great that it's there, it's very detailed. But I mean, I don't know about my fellow scrutiny colleagues, but I'm not equipped to know whether that protocol actually fills the hole it's designed to fill. And understanding the process around how we're making sure that we think we're doing the right things and checking them externally is really helpful.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. And we have got external people coming in as part of the resource programme, if you like, the package that's underpinning this improvement. Is we are outsourcing, we're bringing resources in externally. So you've got those fresh eyes, and that gives you the assurance. And plus, your DFE advisor is an external person, and they will be very experienced, qualified social worker herself, so very experienced. So that fresh eye look will help as well and support.
Can I just add, in relation to that fresh eye point that Kath's just raised, that protocol was drafted by the team, but it was actually reviewed also by the Wye Valley Trust. It was also reviewed by counsel, legal counsel, who was working with us on this YY judgment, and also it's been seen by the court, the YY court as well. So that the fresh pair of eyes is really important, and something like this protocol, you would continually review it. You would continually go back to those parties and new parties to to ask them in terms of practice, and is it dealing with the issues that are coming before them. So we have ensured that so far we've consulted with a number of parties, that this isn't just one drafted by Hereford. This is a collaboration by a number of parties to absolutely deal with that point. Does it deal with what it needs to deal with?
Yes, thank you. Those external it's so important, isn't it? Thank you. Any other? Councillor? Sorry, Councillor.
My turn, I would like to speak out a question. I think one of us were really concerned about the difficulty in delivering documents and papers to courts. There's a huge delay in the server but there is a lot in this about how that's been performed. Could we perhaps have a little more explaining it a bit? Surely it's very good that it's there.
Did you hear Councillor Owen's question?
You were at the sharp end, and it was the disclosure. What would need you know the disclosure?
And the improvement in making sure that documents can be easily located and provided for the court, for example. There's quite a large section in this about that.
Sorry, is that regarding the disclosure protocol? Yeah. So the disclosure protocol will deal with the legal obligations in respect of disclosure required for a court, and that will include so that will deal with what's required in the court, and it will pick up all those it'll pick those issues that are summarized in the report. It will also we will also be working I think I said earlier, information management protocol. So the council has got an information management protocol, and then as part of the disclosure protocol, what we're proposing is that it's something that we agree also with the service, all the services, not just children's services, because litigation doesn't just arise, it crosses the whole of the council. So we will agree what the protocol looks like and how it operates in each of the services, and go back and do training within the service and services in terms of how it can work in practice, and to pick up the points that were raised in the YY judgment.
Any follow-up?
I think it's a really important point to emphasise that has been hugely improved.
Okay, good. I've just got a couple of questions about the culture in the directorate. It might be more for Kath, I don't know. I mean, it was very striking reading this and worrying that social workers were so reluctant to seek legal advice. So if I'm a social worker now and I want legal advice, do you have to go to your, can you contact somebody directly without being worried about the consequences?
Yeah, so I think from perspective, yes, we've got a very, very open door policy as such. So we have a duty solicitor inbox, which they email inquiries into, but we also are available via telephone queries. Before lockdown, we also had a sort of drop-in option. So we would make a solicitor available at the offices of the social workers for them to just pop along and seek some advice. So as Tess and I have been in post, we have made sure that legal are available as and when needed.
I think also,
go on.
Yeah, could I also add something new that's happening now is that we are actually we've got 2 solicitors now that are actually working with social workers, they're working alongside social workers. And that really is to encourage that open door, that collaboration, that sharing of information. And actually we're not there to say no, we're absolutely there to help the journey and the outcomes needed.
That's good to hear, because it's so important. Did you want to add something?
I think if I'm right in what you were also trying to explore, was the judgment drew out the fact that social workers were not allowed to use their professional judgment, and they were persuaded by management to change their judgment. So that was a key theme. One of the things we have instigated now is that the principal social worker, Joe Davenport, is the go-to person. So if they have any concerns, you know, they have an open door, and I do know they do access the legal, so I know that, and they know that they have that from me. If you need to go and talk to legal, talk to legal, that is absolutely fine. But sometimes it's around whether they're concerned around that they've had a conversation with their manager and they're not really comfortable with that decision, which is slightly different to the legal one, that they can go to Joe and Joe escalates it, and he'll escalate it to me and the ADs and also to Tess and Kim, so we can have that round. So they've got that's their go-to if they don't feel they can go through the management. Sometimes you don't, because sometimes it's around a manager saying, no, actually I think they've got that, and they don't want, and that's their third person that can dispute, resolute, mediate, let's look at this, but that comes straight in. That's now in place as well, and that's working really effectively, because we've had a couple where that's happened and it's come to a good resolution for all round, so I do know that's working.
That's good, because I'm seeing it from the point of view of the sharp end, not just, sometimes we just see things from the top down. And just one more thing, which is related to that, looking at paragraphs 10 to 14 of the report, which were, I suppose, related to HR really, and some sort of worrying stuff about supervision, personnel things, disciplinary records, that everything's getting all a bit mushed up together. So I suppose I'm asking if, where HR comes in, if there are changes that need to be made in HR, and how that comes into our sort of improvement plan.
Yes, that's
so the whole point is about where's the master HR file.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems we have. We have something called self-service here as managers. So what that means is people are saving HR stuff all over the council, which is good. So there is an action plan that should be implemented to make sure that isn't the case any longer. It also went to management board on Tuesday to talk about what's our approach, because although we have structures in place, the issue is about compliance. So, it should be them to start following our information governance protocols or rules that say this is where you save things. You shouldn't be using your emails to save things, and that's what the issue was. That's the actual number of it. It's all on email and not saved properly. So there's another action plan to get that into place as well.
That's again in the improvement plan, because that's around where it's so the mosaic system, which is the case management system. It's the old vanilla file that we used to have as social workers with all the indexes. It's an electronic system. Everything and anything to do with the child, including case supervision, sits on that system. That's where it goes. And we're doing a piece of work to make sure that system supports staff to do that, so that change. And then outside of that, as Claire said, the HR system is there. So it's all linked. And again, it will form part of the improvement plan to ensure that is happening, and then that's tested.
Thanks. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Andrews. Just a quick question on staff morale, really. How is the morale system? Are they, how can you say it? Are they more, not joyful, but are they more forthcoming? Are they more open to everybody? Are they more open to you, Kath? Are they talking and not scared of actually saying things? Because I know in the past they have been scared to say things. Are you finding that? So their confidence is back and their morale is high, getting higher, shall we say?
I think if I'm honest with you, morale's mixed, because a lot of them are sad at the judgment,
yes.
and you're sad for the family and everything, so that makes you feel a little bit, we've not got that actual family. So it's, when I say the sort of mix, it's they feel really sad for the family and what's happened to these children. But it's positive on the other hand, because they have heard me say my door is open, and they have accepted that fully. So I have had quite a significant number of one-to-ones with individual social workers and members of the staff who wanted to tell me their story, including staff that used to work here and came back, and I had one yesterday. So I'm really getting the theme of what it's felt like, and we're operating now, you said, we did, so I'm saying, tell me. It'll be confidential in terms of I won't say so said something, but this is what I've learned, and this is now what we're going to do, and that's been accepted and recognised. So I've done lots of one-to-ones. I've got what I call DCS surgeries, so you can come in and talk to me at any time. I've been in Plough Lane today because I've relocated, hence why I'm here. And so I was spending more time around, walking around and seeing the staff and doing that. But they've had a very clear message, and they are absolutely taking that up. And I've had lots of conversations. Some of them quite sad, if I'm honest, because you're right, it has been about, you know, they don't feel as though they've had a voice. But I was very clear in staff briefings I've had. You have a voice, your voice is very important. And you need to come and tell me if you don't feel your voice is being heard. We've also, at the same time, Joe has set up staff engagement forums. So he's running as parallel to that, to staff go and he gathers their voices, and that's coming into my management team, and we're listening to what are the staff saying so that we can start making the adjustments and amendments that we need to make, so that you know we're listening. Something Ofsted said to your staff. They said it in 2018, it was a recommendation, and that's what we're doing.
In legal, I would say morale is really quite low because the worst things happened. Yeah. Someone has given incorrect legal advice to something which is so catastrophic. So the people in the children's team who have been dealing with this case while it's going to court, they're on their knees, they're absolutely working their socks off. And we've got a problem, we've got a huge amount of work to do. The legal department has worked really, really hard over the last year. It's been the hardest year. Being in work, I think, for most people, let's be honest. Being increase in work, increase in new areas of work, COVID, etc. And it just doesn't hit in the teeth, if I'm honest. So Kate and I are holding staff surgeries to say, I've tried to reassure them to say, if you don't know the answer, please ask. We've also put in an escalation process so that decisions of this nature would always get a second opinion now, so that you don't have, it's okay not to know the answer, that's what I'm trying to tell everyone. But also, even if you think you know the answer, it's also not a failure to get a second opinion when it's something this important. So it's definitely one more than Kate and I's. We're going to have another staff meeting this week because people are feeling really criticised by the judgment.
That's understandable. Thank you very much for your answers. Like you all said before, we are very sad what's happened to this family, and our thoughts are always going to be there. But we've got to move on, and we're here to help. Thank you. Thank you for your answers.
Yes, and thank you for your honesty and openness. It's so important. You know, we want obviously the well-being of our staff, and we've got to be honest and open when we need more support. And I really hope you will get the support you need. I've just got a question about legal, which is probably broader than just the Children's Directorate, but it really struck me how much there was about sort of wanting to be, it was as though you wanted to be more proactive, but sort of somehow unable to be, which I should imagine would be extremely frustrating if you see things happening that you want to step in, but maybe you have to wait to be asked to step in, or I don't know. So I'm interested in that, and the relationship between legal and cabinet, I suppose. Do you have can you be proactive? For example, can you flag things up with cabinet and say, I think you ought to be looking at this?
So if I talk first,
yeah.
So from my point of view, the best thing that ever happened to legal services was moving into the Government Centre. Before then, we were part of the Directorate, which meant we weren't in the central box, things were happening. So that's been, that was 18 months ago, so that's made a real difference. What's really important is that we're not seen as optional, because that's the worst thing. And I think with the relationship we now made with Kath and the department, we're not seen as optional, we're seen as part of the team. And I know the mutual execs very much. Corporate even leads some things now, you know? I mean, It's just very, very different. So that's what I would say from my point of view. Obviously, we have a system through mod.gov when reports are going to Cabinet. Tess and Kim both see us, I'm not an expert in childcare, they would see those and would flag issues. But for my level, that's the most significant thing to change, is actually being in the corporate centre and having that value placed on the service, which links to the money being given to us as well, if I'm honest.
And it's echoed in the fact that the improvement, notice the plan and everything is sitting in the corporate. It's not the directorate that's leading that. It's sitting on the pole and the corporate management team, which again is around centralising on, this is where it needs to sit, and you've got that corporate eye connection with the cabinet.
Thank you. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to add in terms of the query as it specifically relates to the children's team. I think historically we haven't been able to be as proactive as we would have liked to have been, which I think was your question, and that's purely by dint of time and resource. So just in terms of through lack of staff and by nature of the work that we undertake and the safeguarding work, it means that we essentially have to firefight as a priority and deal with urgent issues. But hopefully, as a result of the additional funding and resource that's now been provided, that's something that can change for the better. Thank you.
And if I could just add, in terms of Claire saying that we're now part of the corporate centre, I mean, that's absolutely key to us now being what I call the partner. We're a key partner in the journey that the council has to go on, and whilst we don't like saying no, actually sometimes we do have to say no, that's not the right thing in the best interest of the council and to protect the interests of the citizens, to protect the interest of the council. But now we very much want to be seen as the partner, and also the restructuring and reshaping that we've done within legal services, the culture that we are trying to engender in legal services is that one legal, that one council, so that we are seen as a partner in the journey that the council needs to go on.
It's perhaps more of a statement than a question, but there's been a lot of talk about culture and relationship, and in a sense, when you're in these sorts of situations, it's good to hear that things are more positive, you position people better. But there's something about sort of structurally, you can put things in place that insist on things happening rather than relying on relationships and capacity to make them happen. I'm just interested in the balance between how much are we relying on good culture, good relationship, enough capacity, versus actually putting in protocols and mechanisms that force engagement. Because it isn't okay to say, previously we just didn't have good engagement, or previously the relationship wasn't strong. And great that it's okay today, but what about in 18 months' time when something happens and it's drifted again?
So for legal services, every client service level agreement, it's been on our list for some time to do, to be honest. And that sets out exactly what we'll do as a legal team. Now that it requires a conversation with the director as to what you want us to do. And as Tess said earlier, it's been a firefighting. They have mainly been in court, just dealing with those applications in court about threshold care. If actually there's an open conversation that says actually we do want help with SGOs, we do want help with kinship assessments, whatever it is, we'll have a list. That's then that written agreement that says this is what you're going to do for the year. That then helps me, if I'm honest, because that's all about budget. Because I then say, right, well, I need these resources to do that. So that's in our, when Kate talks about the reshaping, that's all part of that reshaping piece of work.
I do think you might know, because it is built, a lot of it is built on relationship, and you can never lose that, because but you also need service level agreements, the protocols, so that it becomes fused and blended. And it was interesting because Tess, Kim and I were talking about this over the other day, about how when we were talking about the dispute resolution, what happens when it gets to me and it's still not. We said that it goes there, and so because we've got to build something that's solid, But you know, a lot of it is around a blend of good working relationships, respect for one another's professions. You know, I might be a social worker for 35 years and done a lot of support work. However, the experts in the room are Tess and Kim, you know, and Kate and Claire from a sort of the council point of view, you know, but equally I'm the expert in the room when it comes to the child and the welfare of the child sort of thing in terms of understanding what's the needs for a child. So you've got to bring those two things together, but you can't do it just in isolation. So I think the service level agreements, the protocols, and just the training and development, co-working and training together. I think that, I mean, Tess made that point well, in that we're not doing this silo training. So we're doing some training with the social workers and legal art in the room. We're actually doing training together. And the more you embed that and build that, you'll build those relationships, as well as make sure that you're dealing with the protocols and the service level agreements. So I think it's a combination of both of them.
Councillor Hay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Tess and Kim and the team, I mean, you've been in an unenviable position, and obviously thank you for all the work you have done over the last few months. It's obviously been very tough, and obviously a lot of firefighting, as you said. So I just wanted to ask you a quick question about, I know that concern lines have been set up for members of the public to report any obviously historic cases. Just a little bit of an update on that, I mean, in terms of volume of maybe response to that and what's being done about it.
So I think that's really mine. Yeah, if I'm honest, panic on your faces there, Tess's packing that. So we set up the helpline, which is still in operation. We have a structure now in place that we're currently working with our complaints department as well, the corporate centre around the complaints, because we're looking through, we've contacted people, not everybody's given us their names, so we've contacted people where we've got their name and we are getting their story and we're looking to see, and some of that will be reviewing their cases, looking at what's happened there, and if we have to make alternative decisions, then make the decisions with them. We will be bringing Tess and Kim a part of that process. So at the moment we have a system in place. The assurance team that we've brought in, which is an external team, they are overseeing that, and we have a report due to come to management board around some of that, what's happening there, and then that internal go through the usual sort of corporate processes, so you'll get that update. But we are proactively looking at them. Some of them are just a sort of statement, this is what happened. One of the things we want to do is pull out the themes where there is a definite theme, and again that will feed into, is that something we need to look at? Do we need to revisit that area because we seem to have a pattern here, and then we can do it that way. So we have them, and it's open. The other thing is people are actually coming direct to me, so I've had emails come straight to me, and that's been fed in. And councillors have had emails, and that's Councillor Norman's had a few emails, and she's passed them to me, so they're all captured in one place. And there's a very systematic way in which we're dealing with it. And the first thing is reaching out and talking to where we've got a name and contact, reaching out and talking.
I think it's been very useful.
Yeah, and it's still
for that information that may have just been lost previously.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it probably at an early stage, but again, it's a good move forwards in terms of knowing that you know, we are responding to these things, because from the public's point of view, they need to know that these things are going to be taken seriously,
yes,
and not brushed under the carpet.
Absolutely. And it's a bit around the informing, you know, the question was asked around your tasks and your activities and what you're doing. Well, that wealth of information coming through will inform our activity and the improvement plan and the work, and that will go into the improvement board. The chair of the improvement board will want to know what's been happening, and so all of that just comes together and gives you a rich set of data that says, yeah, we didn't get this right. Are we on the right path to get it right going forward?
I think that's it. For the first time ever, I think there's going to be that holistic view.
Yes.
That has been missing.
And we are still promoting that email address.
Yes.
So it's not just a one-off, you know, it's easy for us to do it, wasn't it, after that full council meeting. But no, we are continuing to keep it open, also still promote it.
On that, I think it would again be useful if it could be recirculated.
Yeah,
because I think it can get lost in boxes.
It can.
When the improvement board sort of we've talked about having a sort of there'll be a site where people can go on and look at the input. Usually, what happens is there's a go-to site where you can look at what's happening in the plan and everything. You could put the link on there to remind people if you wanted to as well. Because we talked about we sort of being open and transparent to the public. This is what we're doing, this is how the board's working, this is the membership, this is the minutes, the agendas, this is how we're doing things, so it's very open. People can see that for themselves and we can make sure that it's on there as well as a reminder.
That's so good for inspiring confidence that there is a system, because people can just say, you know, I'm really concerned about this, and oh yeah, okay, you know, yes, okay, this is what will happen to your concern. This is how we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
But it's set out as a system.
So the system, it comes into me, so it goes from there through to me, and then it goes to and we've now joined up corporate complaints, because we, you know, genuinely there may be some complaints and we need to look at it through that due process. So we've brought those together and there is a, like I said,
triage.
Yeah.
Still are asking for information, still are asking, can I go to your next training session, or, you know, there's a whole range there.
Yeah.
So,
Anything else? Any action? Jane, anything you wanted to add or ask?
From my perspective, it's we are where we are, we're going forward. I think that's the way we'll go about it. I think we have to say move forward. But I do agree with the fact that we should be protocols, structure, procedures, so things can't fall in cracks. You can't just rely on personal relationships. You know, we carry out ahead.
I hope you'll be able to join us frequently. It's very helpful. Councillor Hardwick, was there anything you wanted to ask or add?
Well, the point I'll just pick up is the red book. I know the figures might be at a day ahead, but you suggested that 3,000 copy and 15,000 for the digital. Is it a protocol that's going to be moved forward?
they've already got it.
Sorry?
They've all got it.
They have now.
Yeah, we've got it all electronic now. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, it's sorted.
Thank you.
We're just trying to give you a bit of context of history and what we've had to deal with.
Thank you. Councillor Norman, as Cabinet Member, would you like to give us your feelings about what the conversation we've just had and anything you want to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, it's been really helpful and reassuring to have this. Can you speak? Sorry, to have this briefing. Use my screen here. Yes, we've heard a lot and read a lot, and I think it gives us the picture of how things have been improved, how the work between legal and children is improving in particular, and that is absolutely essential as we gather. I think that's hugely well. I think especially about that balance between the need for clear direction on what we're doing, where we're going, protocols necessary and so on, but also the relationship, the atmosphere, the culture encourages people to think for themselves, but to recognise they need to discuss with colleagues, with seniors, whoever it might be, because also absolutely vital. And I may say on that level, I'm very reassured, Kath and I are working well together. It's really good to feel confidence and to feel, you know, easy to discuss particular issues. I hope that all councillors will feel that as well, because that's part of building that certainty and that security that I think we all absolutely need. So thank you, and that's really great. And the questions all help to bring out bits of what we're hearing about. I just also, but I don't want to spend very long, I was going to very quickly touch on where we were, where different measures are coming into play, but it's actually been covered to quite a large extent. So we'll just reiterate what we've heard, that we have now had the notice of improvement from the Department of Education. The improvement board is being set up, and there will be different people represented on that, as Chair of Scrutiny, I believe, myself, and a whole raft of other people playing a role, including the independent advisor that has been mentioned from the Department of Education, really in very regular contact with us. In fact, I've got a meeting with them on Monday, so that'll be a very useful start. So all those things are part of building confidence within our workforce and with the public, so that we can see step by step the improvements that have been made, how and why. And I think particularly showing that the public is very important, so that we keep that update coming through regularly. But I think it's clear from what we've been told that there's no outlet. It is regular. The meetings are regular. The updates on what's been achieved, what's been found, how we're going to deal with particular findings. 6 weekly, I think it is, regular updates, and then board meetings. The range of people who are actually inputting into that is also very relevant and important. So I've mentioned some of them, but also we'll have our own independent chair of the safeguarding board these days, the partnership with the member, which is our partnership with police and health. This, I think, is certainly building confidence for me, and I hope it is gradually going to for fellow councillors and, as I say, for the public. So that is getting brought into first, is that right? Yes. So we'll get a much broader, much greater outline on how that's going to work, and the timescale for that as well. So we've touched on it today, but you will get a proper briefing on that on the first. So that's all I can say. Thank you very much.
Questions for Councillor? So thank you for the report. Thank you for the questions. I don't know if I've got a recommendation from Councillor Gandy, which arises from the report, which is that we as a committee set up a scrutiny panel specifically to address and monitor the recommendations arising from the individual cases. So a specific focus on following up the recommendations from the individual cases. Is that those recommendations?
I'll just check. Yeah. Because there's this case.
Yeah.
We know, I've been very frank with you, so there are others that are in the system.
Yes.
Even those, but we talk about cases that are in court, that are like what we're putting down, notable cases. We used to call them high risk, but everyone thinks those high risk ones. So notable cases, that's what you're looking for. A standing panel or a task and finish group that hears about them once they're doing the courses and what the lessons are from them.
I would think so. I can't speak on behalf of Councillor Gandy, but I would think so. Yes. Yeah.
And I think what we could do, if you have that panel, if it was that, I can just bring you an overview of the care, the ones that was mentioned earlier. So you could not go through every individual one, but sort of generally the themes of what came, so you could sort of like blend it into the notable cases and then how we're managing the care concern cases, which I talked to earlier.
Yeah. Because the whole improvement thing is just so vast, isn't it?
It is, and that allows you to focus spotlight.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I think that, in terms of having that oversight, like you say, we had this discussion about you can't ask questions we don't know about, because, and having that information, I think is, obviously we appreciate the confidentiality issues with specific details, but as you say, the overall review helps us focusing on the key things that you say.
Councillor Howard, you had I think you've got a recommendation.
I've got a couple of recommendations to suggest, please. And I've appreciated, like you said, Chair, open honesty. It's absolutely the right thing to do, and it's been good. We've been having that exchange, and we've had a really good broad view today of the key issues, which helps us to understand where we are. There's obviously a lot more we could know. And I've noticed today's content wasn't just about noting the report, but also ways in which we can identify how this scrutiny could work with you, legal services team, to make sure the improvements plan goes forward, and we're continually monitoring, taking Sam's point about the detail over time. And I've seen there's a lot of good work in the report, the journey of improvement, the staff structure, and the stages, and also your point, Kath, about saying you've got a plan in place. So related to all that, my two recommendations are that we can now look at more of the detail in future meetings, so we can ask the pointed questions about specific issues. So the first one is that a project plan with timescales of all the legal services team actions required as part of the overall improvement panel considerations is produced for the July meeting of the Children's and Young Persons Scrutiny Committee. So, for example, you know, when the policies such as the escalation protocol and the end of life protocols are in place and working. So that's the first recommendation. The second one is, as part of this project plan, a tasks versus resources available breakdown is produced to identify who does what. I know you've already got a staff structure, there's a lot of questions in there already. It'd be good to at least have those written down so we know where the questions arise. So comparing internal and external support, for example. So to show two things. One, where the resources gaps still exist. And second, actions and timescales to address them so that we can then ask the questions about how that might be. So those are my two suggested recommendations. I've already given the details to Matthew, so you know what I was saying. That's it, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other recommendations? This maybe. Matt, could you read what we've got?
Okay, well, there's the recommendation for the establishment of a scrutiny panel. So one is the recommendations arising from those cases, and then there's the two recommendations just raised by Councillor Howells regarding the timescales of legal services, teams, and actions, and a breakdown of resources and responses.
Okay, thanks. So we'll vote on those. Should we take them all together? Or do you want to take them?
Just double check, Councillor Graham, anything you want to feed in?
Yes, so Councillor Andrews was asking for full,
I think on the note of cases we just agreed also the cases, the care, you know, the email address.
Oh yeah.
The care concerns of it. We said we'd provide at the same time an overview of some of the themes coming from that, so it would be individual.
I suppose it'd be good to have that.
Cases.
Raised by the care concerns.
Yeah.
I thought it would be included maybe in what we're doing.
Yeah,
have to have that as a
well, yeah, sorry. Yeah, what you're asking.
We're talking at cost purposes.
Sorry.
I think we resolved that one, yes. So Matt's got that.
Okay, so I'll add that to the end of the first recommendation, to set up scrutiny panels to monitor recommendations for local cases and to receive an overview of care concern cases.
That's it.
Yeah, obviously, then I just mentioned Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, so Councillor Graham Andrews was talking about a full project plan of proposed changes, but possibly that comes under what you're going to present us with anyway.
Yeah, the improvement plan. Is that what you mean?
I think so. I mean, he's certainly keen on very, measurable.
Yeah, that's your improvement plan. Yeah, that's that's managed through the DFE advisor to the board. So that was saying we're going to do this, it's on this day, and this is where it's at. What are the risks if we're off track? And what's the outcomes you're trying to achieve? Because that's the key.
Yes, and so let's hope you can join us at our next meeting and we'll be able to follow up on that. I think also he was asking about the timelines in the report. If they can be tighter, but I suppose that all comes, constantly monitoring it comes under what you just said.
I think probably once we've got the first ball, we've started assessing that, it'll start, because the improvement plan will be organic, it won't be static, it won't just be a set of recommendations and that's it. It'll keep moving and changing. And as some start to work with Ben, there'll be another set of priorities that we need to work on, so it'll be a very organic process, and that's how it should be. We're not just fixing a little window here. We do quite a bit really. We need to do it in stage things. So we think maybe it might have a sort of an offline one with them and talk about procurement work, if that helps.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
That might be the first thing. Well, I was just saying on the report on the first, I think we had quite a good debate about what the report should look like.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, you do that, yeah. So,
Yeah, I hope you can join us then. Yeah. So was that an extra recommendation or is that an amendment, an addition to one that we already had?
There was an extra.
Okay.
I think we've just got the three.
And I think we've got the legal plan and timescales and the recommendation too. So I think Councillor Andrews' recommendation is good.
Okay, thanks. So should we take all those together? Can I have a proposer for the recommendations? Thank you, Councillor Harris. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Please can you raise your hand if you're for the recommendations? Against? Abstain? Okay, thank you, unanimous, thank you. So that takes us on to item 8, which is the work programme review. I don't know if anything that's come up today changes anything for that.
Well, there's the additional report about the meeting on the 1st of June.
Yeah.
And report. And if there's anything else that people want to see, there's the reports that Councillor Harris recommended as well up to the July meeting, so that will also be incorporated.
All right, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So work programme subject to those changes considered under the last item would be proposed for approval.
Okay, so that's receiving the adding an item about what's it called again on June 12th. What's it again?
I think the title is improvement notice and improvement report. They're the two things we're talking about in that report.
Great, and that's coming up quite soon then, on June the 1st. And what's the July report?
So it's project planning timescales of all legal services teams' actions, and a breakdown of tasks versus resources to identify who does what, show where resources and actions.
Okay, thanks very much. Are the members happy with those, with the work programme, with those additions? Okay. And today is not our last chance to do whatever we want to the work programme or to ask whatever we want to Kate and Kath and Claire and everybody. This is all ongoing all the time. So today isn't our last chance at all to discuss this or ask questions. So thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming. I think that was a really useful sort of conversational but challenging session. I really appreciate it. Before we finish, can I check with the team that the live stream has been turned off when they're on broadcasting? Thank you to everybody who's been listening. I hope the sound was